Monica, I'm not going to dignify most of your comments with a response. This will be my last letter because I can see I'm not going to get anywhere with you. There's some kind of blockage there that I really think you should explore with a licensed professional. Especially if you call yourself a professor. At one time, I wondered if we were too harsh in recommending that you and your family wait another year before joining our Jack and Jill chapter. But I can see now that we were right. I'm afraid I can never recommend you for our club. You display a volatile combination of residual ghetto and uppity negress, and that will be your undoing if Fatima isn't. Sincerely, Dr. Lucinda M. Johnston, licensed therapist, author of Train Up a Child, Welcome Wagon, Westwood Primary School, events coordinator, Jack and Jill, Claremont Chapter.
Lucinda, I'm not even going to respond to that. But I will say that if someone here is uppity, it's the one of us with two little brats who have run off 3 au pairs. Who even uses that term? If they're not French, and I'm pretty sure your cousin Shaquana isn't, they're nannies. Nannies. And if they're your own relative, then they're just babysitters or bums who need a hookup. This bushiness and the way it keeps you from connecting with your kids is half of your problem. The other half you probably can't fix without medication. Good thing you can write prescriptions. Oh wait, you're not that kind of doctor. How can I be uppity when I've never had any help and started out as a single parent before marrying Jordan? If putting myself through school and becoming the highest educated person in my family with no help but God's makes me uppity, then so be it. We are humble people in spite of our education and finances, and we have more class in our excrement than you have in your whole hamster murdering family. And yes, there is a bit of ghetto still left in me, enough to tell you who can finish the fight if it gets to that point. We're never too far from Oakland or the South Side. Let's keep it real. Monica.
Monica, I do believe that was a threat. The Claremont Police Department will not take this lightly. And tell Fatima to stop pinning notes to the inside of Chrissy's book bag when she's not looking. Chrissy could injure herself on a dirty safety pin, knowing you people, and end up with hepatitis A, B, or C, or worse.
Isn't that
I tried to
STI?
resolve our differences by working directly and exclusively with you and their teacher, Mrs. Watson. But I will have no choice but to contact Principal Lee in addition to the police if this persists. Lucinda.
Lucinda, only you would suggest something so disgusting as intentionally injuring a child with a dirty safety pin. But then again, it was Christinia who put that tack on Renee Potts's chair last year and caused her to need a tetanus shot. Perverse minds think alike, apparently. Lose my number and address, and stop making your kid do your dirty work. M.
Monica. Turn blue. Turn blue. Turn blue. 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 Look, I've written a poem. Perhaps I should send it to Ladybug Magazine. Love, Lucinda.
Lucinda, you need Jesus. Do not write me again, or I will contact my lawyer. I've asked Mrs. Watson to check Fatima's backpack for correspondence from you, and I have made it clear that I do not want further contact from you or Christinia. You are not to speak to Fatima either. I'm requesting a meeting with the school and you and your husband so that we can nip this crazy mess in the bud once and for all. Monica. Jack and Jill, Claremont Chapter.
October 21st, 1991. Dear Mrs. Johnston and Mrs. Willis, it has come to my attention that your respective daughters, Christinia and Fatima, engaged in a brutal fistfight at school. As you know, this behavior violates not only the Westwood Code of Conduct, but also our core values as a school, and is punishable by expulsion. I am sending this letter as a follow-up to the discussion I had with each of you over the phone. I would like to meet with the two of you, and Mrs. Watson, ASAP. My secretary will schedule. Sincerely, Principal Lee, Westwood Primary and Secondary School. October 25th, 1991. Dear Drs. Willis, the school's board and I thank you for your generous donation and for agreeing to serve on the Westwood Welcome Wagon. Given the sharp improvement of your child's behavior, we can agree to rescind our threat of Fatina's expulsion from school. The reputation of our school depends on the efforts of involved parents like yourselves. Sincerely, Principal Lee.
November 3rd, 1991. Lucinda.
Look at this.
Thank you for inviting Fatima to Chrissy's party. She will be happy to attend. And thank you for the lovely fruit basket. You're so bad. It's true. Mrs. Watson looks terrible in that color, and yet Principal Lee finds reasons to look. But I won't say anything more in writing. Jordan and I will discuss the Jack and Jill potluck with you when we see you. XO, Monica.
Actors Erica Alexander and Issa Davis reading an excerpt of Belle Lettre with Alvin Mellon, reading Principal Lee. The story is by Nafisa Thompson Spires. You can read the full story in our book of short stories, Heads of Color.
Singing in the kitchen, running through the yard, going on vacation on a credit card. All in this together, we're taking.
It's the best thing that ever could have happened. Merrily We Roll Along is the consensus best musical of the year. With Daniel Radcliffe, Jonathan Groff, and Lindsay Mendez as the show's central trio, it is perfectly cast, says the New York Times. Merrily makes Broadway feel newly and fully alive again, writes Ben Brantley. And now is the best time to see it. Merrily We Roll Along. Final performance July 7th. Book now at merrilyonbroadway.com.
A quick warning, there are curse words that are unbeeped in today's episode of the show. If you prefer a beeped version, you can find that at our website, thisamericanlife.org.
The question started right after Tobin and his husband moved to the Bay Area, got a house together. Tobin's family was pretty excited about this. They all lived within an hour. And they brought meals over for
Which
weeks.
bay?
They found out the shades.
San Francisco.
But this question popped up.
And the first time I noticed it happening, it was with my
Some
aunt.
people mention the
Kind of out of nowhere, she
Gestapo
was
Bay.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
which
Bay
one of you
Area.
is handy? Is one of you handy?"
The Newark Bay
And
Delaware Bay.
I was just like, "Why does she want to know that? Like, why does she care?"
Yeah, yeah.
And I had like feelings
Barnegat
about
Bay.
it, and I couldn't tell why. And then it just kind of kept happening with other family members. Like they would be talking about, like, "Oh, you guys moved in together into this house. So which one of you's handy?" And on its face, it was kind of like, "Oh, we know when you're in a house, there's a lot of things to fix and a lot of things to do."
Oh,
But it
just
felt
reread
like
it.
there was something else happening
What?
there, and it
Oh,
kind
I
of
think it's
bothered
that.
me.
Oh.
Something else there is
Yeah,
like
no
there was a
more.
question underneath the question that they were trying to get the answer to.
Just don't listen to it.
Yeah, like there was something else trying to be figured out. And I don't know, like the more I thought about it and why I was having feelings about it, it was kind of like this weird aha moment of like, oh, I think you're asking who the man is in my relationship.
It's okay if I pause and
You're
play.
both man,
Yeah.
Yes.
but one of you is really the man.
Yes. Yeah.
Then, when Tobin would tell them that it was his husband who was the handy one, he felt like he was just giving the man ammunition. He put a picture of their relationship that just bugged him. Like they were being sized up in familiar categories. Which of you is the husband? Which of you is the wife?
Wait,
Like
am I
it was
left?
weird because whenever they would ask,
Yeah.
I could feel myself getting defensive. I didn't want to give them that picture. And I think part of my defensiveness came from, oh man, not to
I don't
take us
think
in a
it
whole other
does.
direction,
No.
but if you spend any amount of time in the closet,
In the closet. For Tobin, that means middle school and high school.
I think you're afraid
There you go, you
of
see.
being found
Yeah.
out at all as being effeminate in any way. Like I I know for me, I was very conscious of if anyone could detect quote unquote, feminine traits about me and then figure out if I was gay or not. And so I do think that myself and a lot of gay men carry that around for kind of the rest of your life. And so I think that comes up in having to answer a question like this also.
Yeah, it's funny because it's this innocent question, and then really underneath it, it's there's a bomb waiting to go off. Actually, there's so many feelings.
Looks like the BQE, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like it hits on a thing, at least for me, that I spent a lot of time as a kid running from, or spent a lot of time trying to not have to answer.
Yeah.
How masculine am I? And is somebody else more masculine than I am? And I do want to make room for the idea that they could have meant none of this. Absolutely none of this.
Did you address it directly with any of them?
No, because that would be bonkers. To say, oh, you asked me who's handy, you're trying to say I'm not a man. That, the leap in logic to say that outright is so huge.
What are there in our program? Questions that contain other secret questions inside of them. Questions that are wolves in sheep's clothing. In all kinds of situations that we've all been in dating, in talking to strangers, and dealing with the saddest things that ever happened to us. And more. WBEZ Chicago, it's This American Life. I'm Eric Glass. Stay with us. Okay, so instead of 4 different acts today, what we're going to do is we're going to present the show as 4 questions. Here's the first one. Question. Tell me how you feel about this. So Tobin, who you just heard, is one of the editors here at our show, and really the idea for today's program came out of a conversation that happened at a staff meeting. And what happened was we all got talking about these kind of question traps, where it seems like somebody's asking about one thing, but the question is a proxy for trying to figure out something else. Tobin will explain more.
The conversation was about the questions people ask on first dates, the kind that force who someone really is out into the open, maybe even without them realizing. One such question I didn't even know was a thing, but a few of my coworkers said that for black women of a certain age, it's having a kind of renaissance. Emmanuel, our executive editor, asks it this way.
What do you think of Beyonce? It was a question that I found myself trying to ask basically a lot on first dates because it told me a lot about them. It's a question that tells you, one, in some ways how they feel about a powerful black woman. It's a question that tells you how they think about black women in general, kind of a little bit to me. And that if you feel the need to put her down or say something negative about her, it's a real turnoff. It's a red flag, basically.
They describe her singing style as kind of caterwauling or oh, she's just screeching.
Ben, another producer, has also asked this question on many a date.
All these words that sort of have double meanings if you're a woman and also if you're a black woman, I'm just alright, so you don't like loud people. Okay. That means you don't like me.
Could you tell me about some specific times that you've asked the Beyonce question and what the guy's response was, what it told you?
First date, bar date, pretty standard. Beyonce actually came on in the bar in the background.
Oh shoot, sorry.
What do you think about Beyonce? And he was like, I don't understand what the big deal is about her. Women act like they're in a cult or something, and it's they seem crazy. I was oh well, I really like her, and I don't really think I'm in a cult.
Emmanuel watched the guy through all the reasons Beyonce is in fact pretty great, but the guy didn't budge.
No, he did not, didn't care to. And maybe didn't care to hear me talk in general is what it seems like. So
they did not go out again because, well, you could say he was unapologetic when he fucked up the night. That's a play on a Beyonce lyric, by the way. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Anyway, B.A. Parker, who's also been on the show, she said for her, it doesn't even have to be Beyonce.
I'm gonna go towards north, okay?
Any well-known black woman does the trick.
That way.
If you say Serena Williams and they say, oh, I think she's overrated. Or if you say
Remember, we're not
She
taking the
thinks She's too
KWB.
masculine, or she's
Just the way that, like, because this is still considered 280.
Or how do you feel about Lizzo?
That's why
She's covered eyes. I bring up like a black female celebrity to get their opinion on them, and it usually becomes like the litmus test for how they would treat me as a partner, how they would view me as a person.
But the Beyonce question, she agrees, is the most potent, because the answer can really tell you if you should be crazy in love or putting everything he owns in a box to the left. Again, I am so sorry. The thing about a bunch of people using the same trick, though, is that eventually people, in this case men, might catch on. Are you aware of the Beyonce question?
Yeah, I am aware of the Beyonce question.
Manuel Jochi, producer and man of the show. Have you experienced this?
Yeah, I've experienced it many times.
He told me about a date he was on when we started talking about musicals. When a movie version of Dreamgirls came up, and thinking he was just answering